Estate and Mortgage Show, your go-to spot for everything home buying, selling, and financing on News Talk 580 CFRA.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Another amazing week here in Ottawa.
We're getting closer to Christmas, aren't we?
Closer to Christmas. We had a great Christmas party, company Christmas party. It was amazing.
Epic.
Thank you, Paul.
My pleasure. Epic party in Montebello. That was a ton of fun, and what a blast. And
absolutely.
Feeling great today, let me tell you.
Expect a few slurs from Paul.
Yeah, potentially, yes.
As they got Ubered in here to the studio this morning.
Well, we made it back, though. We made it back from Montebello in time, so we're good.
Here we are.
Looking a
I'm
little
sober.
rough.
I'm good. I'm sober. I was a good boy last night.
Looking a little rough, but whatever.
All right. So, Frank, we had a rate announcement this week.
We did.
I don't think it was a big surprise.
No big surprise. Again, the job report being extremely robust over the last 3 months, all of it actually, being in part-time jobs, and there's still some full-time jobs left. So the question is, what do those jobs comply of, and are they expected to continue? So the unemployment rate came all the way down to 6.5 last week. Now, all of a sudden, Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem made it very clear in his October announcement. I'm going to make this one, and I think now it's up to the government to do the rest. And he's certainly going to stand by that. I still believe, I know there's another one coming up the end of January. The next one's the end of January. I firmly believe that March is probably more likelihood of Bank of Canada if they have to resume. Cut. But a lot has to happen between now and March. The unemployment rate went all the way down to 6.5%. I mean, we're talking about a significant drop in the unemployment rate. And that's one of the concerns to many economists, that they feel that that's the way that Bank of Canada is going to resume dropping, is if that unemployment rate goes up. Now, all these part-time jobs that have been created, are they seasonal? Are they here to stay?
That's normal in December to see a jump in part-time jobs, right?
Of course. So, again, you look at that, and again, economists expected 5,000 job losses a week ago. All of a sudden, there's all these jobs that have been created. Pretty well, more than all of them are part-time. There's some full-time jobs that are lost. We're still reading a lot of stories where some companies are laying off, big corporations are laying off. So we expect that unemployment rate to now start creeping back up. And the question is, how fast will it creep up? And again, Bank of Canada is going to sit on the sidelines, I believe, right up until that unemployment becomes an issue, because most economists believe that our inflation's in line, so it's steady.
It was steady on that last report. The inflation was quite steady.
But Frank, you said a while ago, how many of those part-time jobs are actually part-time jobs, and how many of them are people taking a second job?
Well, that
would be interesting.
We'd love to get those stats, because that would certainly give you a better picture of what's going on in this economy. Are Canadians having to take that second job because the full-time job is not enough? That might work for 3, 6, 9 months, but you can't expect Canadians now to have to take a full-time job and a part-time job to make ends meet. That's not the country that Canada has been built on. So there's lots that has to come out. I think the statistics would be nice to get them a little bit more open as far as who created these jobs. We can see whether they're manufacturing, retail, leisure. We could see that, but at the end of the day, we don't know whether these people have taken these jobs for the next 2 or 3 months just to get over the hump, or they have to keep them for long term, and that'll be an interesting stat to get if we can get it.
I would have loved to have seen the rates come down. I would have loved to. I mean, we've put a pin in the real estate market right now. It is quiet as quiet can be. I mean, November was a tough...
Not because of December?
Well, it's a seasonality thing for sure, but I mean, like November was a really average month. I mean, I talked about
the numbers last week that we talked about.
I talked about the numbers last week, and I mean, like it was a tough. I mean, number of sales was down 18.2%. Like that's a whack of sales.
That's a big drop.
Yeah, and I mean, now we've seen our numbers drop big time, and even us as a company, we had a tough month too. Like November was not a great month, and December's not really. I mean, it's never a great month, anyways. But it's turning out to be a very, very average month again. So, I mean, we'd love to see some of those drops. We'd love to see more optimism in the market. We want to see the market spurring on. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people take their house off the market right now, and they'll probably pound them back on in January. Now you're going to have an influx in January, and it's our October was super strong. Our November was super weak in the real estate market, and I'm
December shaping up to be normal December.
Yeah, it's normal December, but I wouldn't be surprised if like I talked about last week, our average sale price is up 1 point some percent, right? And I think that we're going to find that it could be, average sale price is up 3%, my bad, but the number of sales is up 1.5%. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of December if the sales are absolutely flat and the average sale price is up about 2.8, 2.7, something like that. So, at one point we were much higher. We're coming down now. So
that's Ottawa.
Yeah, but we've had a very stagnant November, and we're having a stagnant December as well. So it's not great, and that's why I'd love to see those rates drop so we can get more people off the fence, get more people, invested and stuff like that. But it's
are you finding people are holding right now? They're waiting for another drop before they're going to commit.
Well, a lot of people are, but it's like the stock market. You can't time it, really. It's hard to time. No one knows what's going to go on with the rates. I mean, Frank could sit here and say, "Oh, I believe the rates are going to go down in January," and we don't know because the job market, the job report, the inflation, what's going to happen in the economy. It's all related to the economy, and we don't really know how that's going to shape up and how that's going to change. But I will tell you that January is usually a very decent start to a year, and I hope that we're going to have a really good, strong January to start the year and, take us into a very decent 2026, in my opinion.
Right.
Well, cold week, right? I mean, this past week is freezing, so I don't know. I mean, you put the fact that it's December, you put the cold weather, Christmas. I mean, you put everything together and, I remember and we've been doing this for 19 years now. There's been a handful of Decembers that have been absolutely robust, but most of them are exactly what we see now. And when you talk about 2.8, 2.7%, well, that's, I think, over the last 19 years, that's what we've talked about is 3%, 4%. So we're in a normal market. It's just that 2026 is going to be the interesting year, I think, in both our businesses. I mean, in our business, because we've got a lot of Canadians that are coming off of ultra low interest rates. And in your business, because people bought at that, 2021 was deemed to be when house prices went crazy. That's the craziest year we've had as far as house prices. And are people going to be comfortable remaining in that house? You might be very busy, unfortunately, but it might be on the listing side where people are going to say, maybe we overbought. We were fine with it 5 years ago with our rate at 1.5%. But now that the rates are at 3.5% to 4%, payments may have only gone up $300, $400, $500. But if you're already living on the edge and now you got to put out another $300 or $400, $500, then all of a sudden maybe it's time to downsize. We might see some of that.
Well, so we talk about what's gone on, over the last few years. Keep in mind, in 2020, like 5 short years ago, our average sale price was $530,000. We're now hovering at 700. We're 699 and change. So it's gone up drastically. But those years, we went up 22% and 19.2%, and so I think we're still having a little bit of a hangover from those years. And so when we only go up, 3% on your average sale price, you're like, ooh,
it seems anemic compared to
what a flat, terrible year. 3%. It's still, it's still amazing. Good. It's amazing. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. That's a Ottawa market. That's an Ottawa market. Yeah.
What do you want to say? 3 to 5% is a typical.
3 to 5% is a typical. Maybe even 2 to 5% is a typical Ottawa market. If you're over that, it's a good year. It's a very good year. It's over 5%. So, like I said, 5 short years ago, our average sale price was $529,000.
That's why drastic. I say 2% today is what really 4% was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, because that's the amount of equity you've built in your home over the year because of the average price of the home being significantly more than it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
You know what? In a few shows, obviously we're going to be doing the recap of 2025, and then we're also going to do our first show in January, which will be the January 3rd show. We're going to talk about what we expect to happen in 2026, predictions, and that. So I think those shows are going to be very enlightening, and I think it's going to be exciting to obviously hear what you think is going to happen in the mortgage industry, what I think is going to happen in the real estate market, and also our last show of December too, just recapping the year. Because it's been a positive year. We saw rates drop 1% over this year.
Yeah, and Bank of Canada's done their job as far as getting back in place. Their neutral rate, which they consider to be anywhere between 2.25. We're at 2.25 at the Bank of Canada, so they've gotten back to their neutral rate. Hence why Tiff Macklem said back in October, he goes, I've done my part now. Now it's up to the government. It's up to hopefully corporations, Canada to do their part. And I'm not, or most economists, let's say, are not convinced that the government's going to do their part of it. And they feel like unemployment will go up in 2026. And if unemployment goes up, then Bank of Canada may have to get off the fence and have to intervene again and maybe drop it. And maybe the neutral rate now becomes 1.75 instead of 2.25, and we see that 0.5% drop in
the unemployment
over the year.
But
over the year, but probably in the first half of 26 is when we're likely to see it.
Well, we're definitely going to see the unemployment rate go up. I mean, we've part of the budget was government cuts, right? So I mean, that's
over 3 years.
That's over a 3-year span.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely going to go up. They're cutting a ton of jobs in the government.
That's Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind the unemployment's Canada-wide, and Alberta might be flourishing, obviously, with the pipes being built, and so again, I mean, we're going to have these. That's the whole part. I mean, we'll leave that for the show when we do the early show in 2026, but that's part of the equation that comes into play, and you can plan for 3, 6, 9, 12 months, but at the end of the day, we have a president down south that can make an announcement and throw everything that's been planned and throw it right out to the sidelines because all of a sudden everything changes. Still have a trade war. I mean, there's a lot of talk about him not even renewing the U.S. And Mexico trade deal.
Trade agreement.
So all of a sudden we've got all these factors that might come into play that could change the trajectory of everything that's happening, whether it's in your market or our market.
Isn't it funny though how one man could shift the way this world reacts?
Mm-hmm.
One man, because I mean, it's not just on Canada. We're talking Mexico, China, like all over the world is shaped by one man.
I will say this. I mean, Trump can say what he wants about his economy being better. Americans are saying differently. So he's 100%. Not listening to what Americans are saying because Americans are saying life is way more expensive than it was a year ago, and they're struggling much more. So, and then you talk about China, and many economists will tell you that China will not blink. China knows that U.S. is going to pick up the phone before they do. They're fine because they're used to going through these big swings on the economy, and they're just going to wait and wait and wait because they understand that the U.S. economy is way more important to the world, and the U.S. will blink first before China does. So,
agreed.
All right, have a question? Head over to realestateandmortgageshow.com and submit your question there. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Just a reminder, if you have a question, head over to realestateandmortgageshow.com and you could submit it there. So, Paul, I know I was away a couple of weeks ago, and one of the topics you guys got into a little bit was that new Bill 60 came out in Ontario.
Yeah.
Can give us a little bit of a rundown on that. I've just been hearing in the news that a lot of people feel that it's very unfair. Is it unfair? Is it good? Where are we at with that?
You know what? Let's call it a balance of protection for landlords and for tenants. For the longest time, we saw that, the tenants ran the roost and, they dictated what went on. And, if they wanted to trash your house, they could trash your house and nothing you could do about it. If they didn't want to move out, they never moved out. So now it's given landlords a little bit more power to make it a little bit more fair the way it should be. I know in Alberta, it's all about the landlords. Here in Ontario,
too far the other direction.
Other direction. Whereas here, it was all about the tenants, way too far in the other direction. So they put some things in place with Bill 60 that just make it a little easier. For example, if you can start the eviction process in half the amount of time. Now it's 15 days. You can start the eviction process for non-payment of rent. The other thing before is, also, if a landlord wanted to move back into their house or put, a son, a mom, and dad or something into their house, the tenant, basically the verbiage was, sure, how much are you going to pay me? Right. And it was definitely at least a minimum 1 month. That was part of the rules. But a lot of tenants were like, no, I want 4, 5, 6, 10 months. And
hey, Paul, can I ask, in that scenario, is it because you're in the middle of a lease or you're month to month? Because in Ontario, I believe you sign a 6-month or 1-year lease, and then once that expires, it automatically, I think the law says you automatically go month to month. You don't do a new lease, right? So
you don't, but that's a change as well.
Is it? Okay.
That's a change as well, is at the end of your lease, you now have to sign another lease. But what it was before is at the end of your lease, you went automatically month to month. And so if a landlord wanted to move back into their place, you'd have to compensate at least 1 month rent and give them a 60-day notice. And now it's changed where the landlord does not have to compensate anymore, but it's a 120-day notice, which
right. You're giving them 4 months.
You're giving them 4 months to find a place, which I think is fair. And there were so many landlords who, listen, I worked my butt off to be able to afford investment properties, only for a tenant to tell me how they're living in my house and what they're going to do to my house and whether they're going to move out of my house. It wasn't fair. Now it's just changed the power. There's a lot of tenants and there's a lot of people who are protecting tenant rights who are saying this is going to create way more homelessness because, landlords are basically going to be kicking tenants out left, right, and center. Well, they can't just do that, first of all. And I think
if the lease expired, they could. Like with the lease. So,
yeah.
let me ask you, you said the 120 days. So that means if the lease expires, let's say my lease expires January 31st.
Yep.
Do I have to find somewhere else February 1st, or does the landlord have to give you notice 4 months prior, so October 1st, to say, hey, your lease expired January 31st, just so you know, I'm not going to be releasing it to you. I'm going to be putting it out. Do they have the right now? Does the landlord have the right to put it back out to market and say, you know what, I'm getting not enough?
That's clear.
So still, that's a clear no. The tenant still has the right.
Yeah, if the landlord would like to move back in, then they have the right to move back in now, where before it was almost...
Or move a family member.
Or move a family member.
Or sell it.
Or sell it. Or sell it. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I have one investment property right now where I actually said to the tenants, listen, I'm looking to sell this property. I want to give you ample notice. Go find something else. Or if you find something, you have to move out in 2 days. Don't worry about it. Don't give me notice. But I am going to sell this property. And their response was, not a problem. How much are you going to pay me? And I'm like, what? Like, I'm trying to be fair and give you ample notice. And that the problem is you can only raise your rent by a certain amount.
Yeah,
and this year was like 2.1% this year, which is peanuts. It's really peanuts. So if you originally get someone in your property and they're well under rented, to catch up to the rents is almost impossible because you can only raise it 2.1% this year, which is nothing. And so a lot of tenants who are stuck in these unbelievable lease terms underwater, they never want to leave. So trying to get them out was virtually impossible. And we've run into, as realtors, we run into nightmare situations trying to sell homes that have tenants in them. And sometimes the agents don't want to show those homes because sometimes they're going to be a nightmare. You literally can have a scenario where you literally sell it. The landlord gives notice to the tenant to move out because they need vacant occupancy, and then all of a sudden the tenant doesn't move out. Like, what do you do?
On closing, what do you do?
You've sold your house, you're ready to move into your brand new house, and you got a tenant in there. So we saw so many nightmare situations like that, and we're still seeing them today. I have one of the worst situations, which I talked about a couple shows ago, that it was just an absolute nightmare the sellers actually got sick over it because the tenant just wouldn't leave. He just said, no, this is my house. Mm-hmm. The landlord's like, no, this is my house, right? So Bill 60 is going to make everything a little bit easier. There's also a new zoning bylaw that's come in Ottawa too, which is going to make it even better. They're trying to intensify things and get more housing as immigrants are coming in. So they've changed the zoning to make it easier for more units. You can go up at least 3 stories depending on your lot size and your zoning. I've heard people especially in Vanier and Alta Vista with those huge lots. I know people who are taking a bungalow and putting 11 units on it. It's just, if your zoning allows it, so you'd have to check with your zoning. We had a great question actually about
last
this.
week. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you might want to read that question. And anyways,
reread it.
Yeah.
Last week we talked about it.
Yeah. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. So it was a great question, but it was all about, I have a duplex. Can I add units to it? And it's absolutely, you can add units. They've changed this. You can go, every residential property now can go up 3 stories, and some higher and some way more units. So they're trying to get units. They're trying to intensify things. And I think it's a great thing. It's going to get more housing, more doors, allow people to have more property, which is going to be great.
Yeah, I'll tell you though. I mean, you talked about, selling a house, tenant moving out, and then all of a sudden, the last minute, it impacts on the financing side too. There's a domino effect.
I was going to ask about that,
because if somebody's buying the house to move into it, one of the clauses that's on the mortgage approval, especially if you're buying it with less than 20% down, is that property must be owner occupied on transaction date. So if all of a sudden you're getting that property and you've bought it with 5% down because the house you're moving into, and these tenants are not moving out, you can't even take possession of that home now, because it's against the mortgage rules. The mortgage rules,
they won't release the funds.
Very clear. Yeah. You actually sign an affidavit at the lawyer saying that you are going to owner occupy the property, and the insurance policy, the house insurance policy, will be very clear and say that it's owner occupied and not tenanted. So therefore, the financial institution would say balk at the mortgage at this point. So again, it has, that domino effect really kicks in, because at that point you're talking about now canceling a transaction. You've got somebody that possibly has given notice on the place they're living in now because they're moving into this one. But because these tenants won't move out, all of a sudden now it changes everything. And now these people may not have a place to live anymore, the purchasers, because they've given notice on their current.
The moving truck's full on the way to the house.
Is full, everything is happening. So again, I mean, I love the Bill 60. I mean, I think it evens things out where I think the power was too much on the tenants. I do have a question, though, as you're talking about this bill, and I think there's still has to pass, if I'm not mistaken, or has it passed?
No, it's passed.
It's passed?
It went through, yeah.
So I'm curious. So why sign another lease for a year if you can't give somebody notice and rent it out to somebody else? Like, I'm just trying to see what the progression, like, why have that? So in other words, if I can't tell you in October that, hey, in January, I want you to leave, I'm not going to renew the lease, and can you not renew the lease because of late payments all the time? Can you, like, where does a landlord's rights end, and where does the tenant continue to get the power? Does the tenant still have the power if they're consistently giving you the check on the 10th instead of on the 1st? They're consistently late, and maybe they're tearing up your property. At what point does a landlord have a right to be able to say, you know what, I'm renting it out to somebody else because I just simply don't want this tenant anymore? Where does that stand?
Really, really good question. The biggest issue is you can't kick somebody out and then re-rent it to somebody else because you want more money, or maybe you got a nightmare tenant.
But it's not about, it's about the nightmare tenant. It's about them tearing your house apart. At what point does a landlord get some of those rights back and say, wait a second, this is my property that they're running down?
My understanding was that there was some new language in it about the eviction process and making that a little bit smoother.
Well, it's half the time now. Before the eviction process, you could start after 30 days. Now it's 15 days, but in order for the tenant to have a hearing with the LTB, Landlord and Tenant Board, they have to pay 50% of the arrears. So it just, things are so much smoother now. But you're right, Frank. Like, it's, like I've walked into one of my investment properties and it was disgusting. And I said to the girls, I work hard to get this place perfect for you, and you've come in, you've made it disgusting. And her response was, so? And I was like, okay, I guess you're right. Like, what do I do about it? Like, there's nothing I can do about it. I would love to get to the point where it's like, you know what, you're a slob, I'm kicking you out. Like, I would love to do that. You just can't, unfortunately.
And I get it for lousy landlords. Listen, there's lousy landlords out there that 100%. Don't do anything. You know what? They deserve what they get. But I think the problem becomes hardworking people, like you said, that work, save every penny,
busted
do everything
their
right,
butts to get there.
Get this investment property, and they treat their property like it's a castle, and they expect the same thing on theirs, and that happens, and you lose your rights. That's where I think the system still needs a little bit of tweaking.
Have a question? Head over to realestateandmortgageshow.com and submit it there, and we'll read it on the air. We'll be right back.